Hi there everybody, welcome to another video. On today's video I have this VW Polo 2012, the 1.4 petrol automatic. I'm going to be changing the oil and the oil filter in this, and also I'm going to check the coolant level and top up some screen wash fluid. So if you get your bonnet open, screen wash fluid goes, I'll just put that there for now, in here. So open that and top up some screen wash fluid. I recommend buying the correct fluid for it. You can get it concentrated, already mixed, and pour it in here. If you put only water in here, that water may freeze if it's minus conditions, and it will freeze in there, it will expand, possibly damage your tank, and obviously you're not going to have any water coming out to wash your windscreen when you need it the most. So I'm just going to put that in there because I won't be able to hold it with one hand. Okay, I got it nice and full, and now we can just put that cover back on. And if you buy yourself that 5-liter can, you can keep it in the car and obviously top up these regularly, especially if you use the car a lot. If you don't, then obviously it won't be as frequent, but it's a good idea to always keep these full. So next, we'll check the coolant and percentage of antifreeze. The coolant in this car, the coolant level, it is a little bit worn out here, but you have a minimum mark and then you have a maximum, which kind of relates to this area here. So this is at the max at the moment, so it's a good level. And I was running the car for a little while, so this can be hot, so just be aware of that. If your car has been driving or is been started for a while, there could be some pressure in here, so be sure to open this slowly and carefully, releasing the pressure as you go, because if you get hot coolant jump on your face, it will be scalding and you'll burn yourself, and that would be not good. So that's open, so the level is good. And now I have this little gadget here which we're going to use to measure the percentage of antifreeze. So we just suck some of that coolant into this machine, and then it's gonna give us a reading here, which at the moment it's about minus 18 or so. You can also check the sort of the color of the coolant here, which looks a little bit of sort of pink. From here it kind of looks orange, in here it looks pink. And also you can check that the coolant is nice and clean. It doesn't have any oil or any it's not mixed with anything. So this is a good little tool for that, and that has settled at about minus 20. So what does that mean? Minus 20, it means if the temperature outside reaches minus 20 or minus 25 degrees, then this coolant will freeze. Anything below, the coolant will remain liquid. So, and that's important because, again, if you only have water in here or less coolant, then that can freeze and damage your engine. So it's a good idea to have a good percentage of coolant in there, especially obviously if you live in somewhere like the North Pole, then you want your coolant to be rated at about maybe minus 50 or above. And when I say above, I mean minus 60 or whatever. But if you live in another country like the Sahara Desert, it might be very hot, so you can have your antifreeze at minus 10 or so. But it's a good idea to have antifreeze in there because it's got additives to protect the engine from corrosion. As to if you have only water, again, obviously you can use only water in a very hot country. It will not freeze, but it will corrode your engine, so you still need to have antifreeze. Anyway, now we can move on to the oil and the oil filter, and I'm going to start by pulling the dipstick here and opening this oil fill cap, and I'm just going to leave that there. This just allows a little bit of air into the system while we drain the oil from underneath, and we also take the filter out from underneath. So my filter is this one here. this Malay OC295, and we are going to need a socket. This is a 32mm, no, this is a 30mm socket for that there, to remove the other filter if it's got that. Some of them don't have that, it's just one big socket. And well, that's it as far as the filter is concerned. And we'll remove this clear cover here, and we'll add a little bit of oil to this O-ring as well. Looking at the car from underneath, you're gonna wanna remove this cover here, which is held in by 6 T20 Torx screws, like this one. So you need a T20 Torx bit to undo those. So I already undone all of them, and then we can just slide that off. And then, with that out of the way, you'll have access to the oil filter, which is up here. You don't really need to remove that cover for the sump plug bolt, which is just here. But yes, for the oil filter. Now, with a 19mm socket here, gonna put that there, and we're gonna crack that open. It shouldn't be too tight. And then we can open these. And just do remember that again, if the engine's been running quite a long time, the oil can be very hot as well, and it can also burn you. So be aware of that. Maybe you can wait for it to cool down for a little bit, or obviously also use gloves. But sometimes even holding this bolt can be extremely hot. So just be aware. Okay. If we do it quickly, we avoid a bit of mess, but when you're doing oil, it's always a mess. Okay, let's let that drain. Right, now we can tackle the filter with our hand. And there is some oil draining out of there. Okay, let's get that out of there. And that's it. So now we'll let that drain a little bit. It doesn't really drain from there that much. Just waiting for that to finish a bit. While our oil is draining, we're just gonna change the copper washer here. That's the old copper washer there. I've got a new one here. And if you want to know the size of that copper washer, it's this one here, 14 by 20 by 1.5 millimeters. So, and my oil filter is here. I already put a little bit of multi-purpose grease around this O-ring. You can also use a bit of the oil that you're going to use for that. And then we can just wipe clean the surface where the filter is going to be sitting in. I mean, you just want to make sure there's nothing there that can cause a leak. So I just wanted to make sure it's nice and flat. There's no carbon on any buildup. So you can see the area there. It's nice and shiny, and there's nothing around to cause any problems. And then we can get our new filter there and just get it on there. Get it in by hand, and we are just going to tighten that by hand. So you grab it and tighten it as much as you can, and that should be fine for that. Don't use your tool because you can damage it. And then we're gonna put our sump plug bolt in as well. Sump plug bolt ready to go in. Again, put in by hand as much as you can. Make sure it's going in the correct way. These bolts in the VW, they always get a little bit hard at sort of that point, so you can then use your ratchet. At least you know it's most of it is going in the correct way. You can use your ratchet a bit and then it's going to go soft again. But I got what I have here is a torque wrench which is set to 35 Newton meters. So I'm going to tighten this bolt to 35 Newton meters. This always happens. Okay, there we are. Now that's it. So that is 35 Newton meters. That way, if you have a torque wrench, then you avoid yourself damaging anything, of course. And if you don't, try not to damage anything, because that sump, if you damage the sump, you'll have to replace it, and it can be a little bit of a pain to take it out. So anyway, with that done and our filter done, all we want to do now is we want to rinse the area, clean it. I got some brake cleaner here. Leave the area nice and clean as it was. That way you don't confuse next time thinking you have an oil leak. So also clean this bit if there's any oil that's dripped around here. Just leave it nice and clean. Happy days. Now we're gonna put the little cover back on here and then lower the car and top up some oil. It's time to top up some oil. Now unfortunately the manual doesn't state how many liters of oil this engine takes. So I was just doing a little bit of research on the different engine sizes. I found some information saying this engine takes 4 liters and other information saying it takes 5.5 liters. So luckily we have a dipstick, and on the dipstick we have a minimum and maximum marks here. So this end here is the minimum and this end here is the max. So what I'm going to do to be safe is I'm going to add oil gradually. So first I'm going to add 3.5 liters and see where we are in the dipstick. Okay, I just added 3.5 liters, just a little bit over 3.5. And by the way, I'm using 5W30 here in the UK. So because our temperatures are not extreme cold or extremely hot, so 5W30 usually meets a good range of temperatures. Now let's check our dipstick here, see where we're at. Okay, so that is kind of showing me full. You can see the dipstick there is shining all the way up to the sort of full area there. So that kind of tells me that this engine probably takes 4 liters, and that's because after you run the engine, some of the oil will go into the oil filter housing and it will remain there. So then when you check the oil again with this, it will show lower. So I've got about 3.6, 3.7 liters at the minute. What I'll do is I'll just quickly run the car and then we can check this again. So we'll fit that back in and we'll cover this here. Right, 3.6 liters. It's enough oil to run the car. Okay, engine's running, no warning lamps, no warning lights, no oil pressure lights coming on. So happy days. Engine's running for a few seconds. It's enough for the oil to circulate and go into the oil filter. Now we can switch off. And we'll check this again. So I just need to wipe it and then we'll recheck this. Okay, just got it wiped. So let's have a look at what we have now in here. Okay, so this is showing me to be a bit hard to see there, but it's just a little bit below the max area. So it's just showing me to be, it's difficult to point out either as well with my finger, but it's just there, and we could be just up here. So that tells me that we can top up a little bit. Right, I added between 3.6 and 3.7 liters, and my gauge here, my dipstick here is at the full. It's at the full. So I don't really want to add any more oil here, because if I put 4 liters, it's definitely going to be over the mark. So let me just see if I can show you where this is at. Maybe able to see the shiny area there. So you can see that it's at the max, and unfortunately there is very little information. I mean, there is a lot of information, but very mixed. Some says 4.1 liters, some say 5.5, some say 5, some say 3.6. So now I'm sort of in the believing of the 3.6 liters for this. So I put maybe 3.7. You can just see there, that's 3.5 there, 3.6, just under 3.7 maybe. But I'm gonna leave it there. So unfortunately, like I said, there's no information on the manual. Maybe it's a good idea to call VW and find out the exact amount of oil that goes in this engine. But having said that, we're pretty much finished here. Again, we can start the engine. There's no oil pressure warning lamps or anything like that. And then we can just have a quick look over, make sure there's no oil leaks, have a quick look underneath, make sure there's no obvious oil leaks, and you're pretty much finished. So all in all, I hope the video helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you everybody on the next video. If you have any questions, don't forget to ask. And obviously, if you haven't got, just do the same as me. If you haven't got a manual that states the oil capacity, you can check your dipstick so you don't overfill your engine. So fill it up gradually. Anyway, thanks for watching.